I'm Bill Hestwood, Associate Broker at Production Realty. We're discussing property taxes in the state of Michigan and particularly Jackson County.
And I'm Amy Gilpin with Production Realty. I'm also Associate Broker and Manager here. Bill and I are both on the Board of Review for different townships in which we live. I'm on the Board of Review for Hanover Township, and Bill's on the Board of Review for Summit Township.
State equalized value is basically what the assessor for the piece of property and for the township in which their property is located thinks is the true cash value of what their property is really worth. The taxable value is a different number, most likely lower than the state equalized value in which you pay your taxes on. Well, I guess to answer that I have to go back a few years, back to November of 1978 when the Headley Amendment was passed. Back at those days you only had state equalized value, and that was what the property was worth, and it was also what you paid your taxes on. When the Headley Amendment became law, it stated that a taxable value, which at that point started the same as what the state equalized value was, could only go up 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever was the lesser, but the state equalized value or the value of the property could go up to any number that the tax assessor for that township or city felt that the property was really worth.
When you purchase a house, there's a real estate summary sheet that the assessor's office has on every property. So what you want to do is you want to go check the real estate summary sheet to make sure that the features that are marked on there are correct. Different things like how many bathrooms you have, bedrooms that you have, the condition of the property, garage, pole barn, your property size, that type of thing. You want to make sure that that's correct because that's some of the information that the assessor is using to determine what you're paying your taxes on. And again, the SEV doesn't matter, the taxable value matters.
Correct.
Another question that we get a lot, why do my taxes go up on my house even though I haven't made any improvements? In the case in Hanover where I live, we've had 3 or 4 really good sales in the past year there. And so a lot of my neighbors are questioning why our taxes all went up. We didn't do anything to our house, so why did everything shoot up a little bit? Well, it's because our region where we live has some sales, and as a collective whole, the taxes go up. The state is not allowed to track sales, so they're not saying, well, this house sold for $175,000. I'm raising their taxes to $175,000. They don't do that. That's illegal. So they look at the area as a whole, and if the area as a whole has gone up in value, the taxes go up in value. If they go down in value, then the taxes as a whole go down in value.
You got to remember that these townships have what they call sales areas, and they do the comparisons in the areas in which that property is located. Sometimes people will come in and say, well, this house over here just sold for this little amount and you got mine higher than that. But if they're not in the same sales ratio area, those other sales don't come into effect.
And those areas have already been determined. Like in Hanover Township, the lakes is one area where I live, which is very rural. That's another area. The village of Hanover is another area. So it's not the assessor really determining that section, and it's not the Board of Review determining the area. It's already been determined where your house is located and the values that's used against it.
And most townships would have a map if you went in to look at it and see where these sales areas are. Well, you got to remember that by law, they're going to go up every year. 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is the lesser. But the taxable value can never, by law, exceed the state equalized value. If at whatever point the tax bill value and the state equalized value get to be the same number, then the taxable value stops at that point. It can never go higher than the state equalized value. And why do the taxes go up on a house when it is first purchased? That is called uncapping. There could be a wide spread at that point between the state equalized value and the taxable value. And when a property is purchased, it becomes uncapped, and then the tax assessor resets the taxable value at whatever they feel the property is worth at that point in time.
So if you buy a house that was previously owned by, let's say, a little old lady, she lived there for 40 years, and you saw that there was a big difference between the SEV and the taxable value. Let's say the taxable value is at $30,000, the SEV was at $80,000, you purchased the house for $85,000 or whatever, it's going to come uncapped, and your taxable value is going to go up to the SEV level. So that's why your taxes go up in that situation. If you're purchasing a home that was recently sold, let's say 2 years ago, you're not going to see such a big change in the taxes.
The only way you can do that is to appear before the review board, which is in March every year, and state your case as to why you feel your taxes are higher than they should be, and whether the taxable value is higher than it should be, and then the review board looks at your property, compares it to other ones that are similar in nature, and they may or may not agree with you, and if they agree, chances are you would get the taxable value reduced, which would reduce your taxes, or they would do nothing.
So some things that you can bring with you to the Board of Review meeting, which, by the way, the Board of Review is made up of ordinary citizens. It's just people from the township that live in the township who make up the board, who make this decision. The assessor doesn't really have a say in that meeting. He has a little bit of influence because he has the knowledge, but for the most part he goes by what the citizens are saying. So what do you need to bring with you to lower your taxes, or ask to lower your taxes? An appraisal would be great. If you could bring an appraisal, that helps more than anything else.
Well, one thing I always talked to people about was how they bought the piece of property to begin with. Many times they have bought the property at a foreclosure, they bought it at a tax sale, or they bought it from an estate. And in many of those cases, this is a distressed sale, in that the bank on the foreclosure wants to get rid of the property, and the estate wants to get it sold so that they can close the estate, and in many times the purchase price isn't what it should be. And people come to the Board of Review with that documentation that says, I just paid this for this property, why are my taxes and the value way up here? And the reason is that in the assessor's point of view, sales that are done through foreclosures or estates are not what they classify as arm's length transactions, and so therefore they don't look at it as saying that the purchase price is really what the property is worth. No, taxes are a pain in the neck, but we've all got them. I got them, you got them, and we got to pay them. And we don't like it sometimes, but if you really have a problem and want to discuss it, make sure you go to the Board of Review and air your grievance. It may not do you any good, but at least try.
So we had one person come in and say that he wanted his taxes lowered. It was a foreclosure. I had actually shown the house, so I was pretty familiar with it, and he was saying all these things that were wrong with the house, and the other members of the board said, well, are there any outbuildings? Is there any improvements that you could tell us about? He's like, no, I don't have any outbuildings. And I said, what about that pole barn that's out front that's a 30 by 40 with water, electric, and concrete floor? Oh, well, yeah, I do have that. So we didn't lower his taxes because A, he wasn't honest, and B, the house was worth what he was paying in taxes on that, especially since he got it as a foreclosure.
Yeah.
See, everything I said out we heard.
No.
Yours is good.
No, yours is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or property detail cards, as we call them. We find a lot of errors, especially on square footage.
Mm-hmm.